Tonight before the episode starts, we thought it was necessary to address something that's been going on that Rudy and I have very strong opinions about, and we think it's time that we give our opinion of it. I know certain people know that we would have certain opinions of it, so we just want to get it out of the way and end that discussion and move on to other things like vintage baseball. Rudy, I'm going to get your opinion about this, but I'm going to give you my opinion first. Fruit Loops has many different colors. They're all the same flavor. This is a true statement. How do you feel about this?
I feel like I lived a lie for the majority of my childhood. I feel like Toucan Sam was a false idol. I didn't have this awakening till recently that yes, they are all the exact same sugar-coated flavor.
Is Fruity Pebbles the same way?
Oh yeah, it's just
Let me tell you,
basically
is it? Are you telling me that all the Fruity Pebbles are also the same flavor?
they're the same. It's cereal concrete. That's what Fruity Pebbles are. You could like build a brick house with that stuff. Yeah.
Is there a cereal that has multiple colors that has different flavors for the colors? Is there something tried and true out there in the cereal community? This this
I
is
think
complete misrepresentation.
we've uncovered the seedy underbelly of big cereal.
Cocoa Pebbles taste chocolatey though, but it's one color.
Yeah, and all the Lucky Charms, they're just marshmallows painted different colors. They're not different flavors. In
Yeah, but
Lucky
they're not
Charms,
advertised. They're not advertised to taste different. They're
whatever.
just Lucky
I
Charms.
thought I was
Fruit
gonna get
Loops,
something
it
that
says
tasted like
fruit.
a rainbow.
Oh, that's Skittles, dude. All right, here we are. Here we are, Roller Around the Barrel Vintage Baseball Podcast, talking vintage baseball players from coast to coast, border to border. Uh, it's almost time for the season to start. I'm very excited. I see a lot of posts of teams either getting together this weekend for the first time on their schedule, or they're really, you can tell they're excited because they're talking about their opening day in like a week or two, and they're like posting pictures like, and it's still a couple weeks away. They're very excited. We're very excited. As we're very excited because we get to see each other in person on May 6th at the Flat Rock Invitational in Flat Rock, Michigan, at Hurock Park, as we unveil a new video presentation. It's not that much different than any other video presentation, but we'll be proud of it, I'm sure. It's going to be a combination of vintage baseball meets pop-up video from VH1, something in the middle there. we're gonna we're gonna have all kinds of vital information on the screen for these matches, rules, scenarios, and also some facts about the players, uh, and some funny tidbits also along the way. So
Everyone loves
let
a
me bring in
tidbit.
my co-host. No, you can't talk until I bring you in. Stop
Fair
it.
enough.
There's a process we follow around here, and you are
You were
right.
right, and I apologize, and I will stop
You're
talking now. Please go ahead with your
talking.
introduction.
All right. Let me bring in my co-host. He
Thanks,
is
Barrel Roller. It's a pleasure to be here this evening with you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't
that's
see,
it. Go ahead.
I can't see your angry face right now.
I,
Uh,
I am
uh,
not angry.
for the
Oh,
listeners out there who can't see this setup we have going, I think we've uncovered the technical issues, audio issues we've been experiencing. However, Barrel Roller has decided to jump on the sacrificial grenade and go without video this evening for the
you're
betterment of the
welcome.
sound of the sound
You're
quality.
welcome. Yes. Rudy, uh, tell us how you've been, and then bring in our guest and let's rock and roll with this.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am doing fantastic. I'm doing even better right now considering we had a week off last week. I want to get back into it. And you know what? I'm not going to waste any more time. And forgive me if I butcher your last name, sir, but joining us from the Capital Baseball Club of Lansing, Michigan, we have Michael Jarema.
Well, I'm going with
Jarema.
Jarema. Was I
Jarema.
closer?
It's wait, am I muted? Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, it's Jarema. Like
Oh, you were closer.
yeah, actually barrel roller, if you remember at the captain's match in Frankenmuth last year, I gave you the guidance on pronunciation of Ray, like ray of sunshine, and then you started calling me Ray of Sunshine the rest of the night.
Son of a gun. Well, I am annoying like that. I do, now that you say that, I totally remember that. But before that, no, totally wiped out of my mind. Jarema. Ray, like there's so many people that deal with last name pronunciations that have something lined up for people to teach them what their pronunciation is. I'll never forget how many times I called Jeff Kozlowski by something completely different, and he said, "Listen," and he was not happy, and he said, "Listen, it's just like luggage, okay? Just Jeff Kozlowski, just come on." And I'm like, "Oh my god, he has heard the wrong pronunciation so many times." Michael, how many out of every 10 new people that say your last name, how many get it right on the first try?
I would say 0 usually. Maybe if we bring it
You're
up to
bitter.
20, you'd get 1.
You're bitter. There's no way 10 people get that wrong. Just come on.
It's not a very common last name. It's so my family hasn't been in the States for super long. My great grandpa came over through Ellis Island, so there's only a couple generations, but they had a bunch of kids. So if there are any Jaremas out there listening to this, we probably are some kind of cousin going back to the Saginaw area.
Ooh, I love it. Let's make that connection, people.
I did meet someone. I can't remember who, when we played the Union Club of Dexter last year, I met a ballist whose wife, her maiden name was Jarema, I believe, and we figured out we were cousins.
Shut up. That's awesome.
Yeah, she wasn't living anywhere near Saginaw, but that's where they all propagated from.
Michael, it is good to see you. I don't know how many actual real conversations we've had. I believe we've had many small ones.
I think so.
Introduce us to the dog.
Barking.
We're not going any further until we meet the dog.
She just left because we have 2 dogs. One of them loves to bark at everything, and then this one sometimes gets worked up by the first one barking. So she's usually the calmer one. I thought she was gonna be fine on my lap. Little one starts barking downstairs. She barks, tears off downstairs too. So she's actually gone now.
We're gonna need names and breeds. What you got there? What are the dogs' names?
They are both a Shih Tzu toy poodle mix called a Shih-Tzu. Fenchurch is the older one, named after the character Fenchurch from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books.
We're dealing with a nerd. Okay.
You absolutely are. And then the other one is Elena, named after Elena Fisher from the Uncharted video game series. Because those are both things that my wife and I both like.
Yes.
Before we get into all of this, let me just tap into the nerddom a little bit. You're friends with Grant Parker, correct?
Absolutely, yes. We met in 6th grade, or not 6th grade, in 1st grade when we were 6 years old, and we became friends because we both had Super Nintendos. And then in December of 2019, he was actually one of the 2 groomsmen in my wedding. It was just my brother and him, so we're close.
The Grant Parker is the newly elected captain of the Bay City Independent Baseball Club, and quite a nerd himself. So this all makes sense now. This is I can't wait. I have Graham Parker on the show coming up within the next month, so I can't wait to talk to him about your guys's romance. Speaking of romance, Rudy.
Yeah.
At the end of this episode, we'll be releasing our remake of Guy Love from Scrubs. So hang on to that as we sing Guy Love. Only a little bit, because you'll hear that Rudy, although he was an actor and got his degree in acting, it was not in singing, and I'm way even worse. So the worst ever. All right, Michael, let's get to the meat. This is what we want. This is what we want from you. We want to know how you got into vintage baseball, how you decided to start your own team, how you got your field, what your decisions were on your event that you started, where you're at today, where do you see your future? Go with it. Go.
Okay. Well, I will preface by giving a little context to the story of how we got started. I personally have practically no baseball history myself. I was indoorsy growing up, which you can gather from the nerddom. I was into video games, drawing, reading. I played jazz drums in high school, that sort of thing. I did play t-ball when I was 4 or 5 years old, mostly because my brother had played. And I spent my time in that drawing rainbows in the infield dirt with my fingers.
Heck yeah.
And then after that, I attended half of a Great Lakes Loon game because my cousin Michelle was singing the national anthem. And I enjoyed myself, but I had to leave early because I was a teenager and my mom was my ride, and she didn't have any interest after my cousin had finished. So that's the context, not a historical. Oh, actually, okay. I don't want to say not a historical baseball guy because we're talking about historical baseball, which I am very much so, but I historically am not a baseball guy. I've never been a hater or anything, but I'm more of a Detroit Lions fan than anything else. So on to the genesis of the Capitals. We talked about I'm friends with Graham Parker Moonlight of the Bay City Independents. Met a long time ago. He was in my wedding. In September of 2020, he was going to be playing with the Independents in the State Cup tournament that they were hosting. And I'm from Bay City originally, so I thought it would be fun to go see it with my wife, Emma, and bring another old school friend of mine in Moonlights along as well. And I expected that it would be a nice little surprise for him. He'd appreciate the support. We would have a fun day outside. It'd just be a good time, fun way to spend a weekend day. I didn't expect to completely fall in love with vintage baseball over the course of a couple of hours. I didn't expect to see a sport that had so many people of all ages playing together. And while they were certainly trying their hardest and playing competitive, on a personal level, they were being so non-competitive about it. Just so friendly to one another, heck, friendlier to their opponents than to their teammates a lot of the time. There was a lot of laughter, congratulations given to the other club for outstanding plays. In most sports that you watch, when one side does something incredible, the other side is full of groans or just this quiet, dark seething. Mm-hmm. And they might get mad at their own teammates for mistakes that they make. There's just this really thick tension in the air. And that was something that had always driven me away from wanting to try other team sports myself. I didn't want to immerse myself in that tension. It isn't rewarding for me. It's just stressful. But with vintage ball, there was sort of a lightness in the air. Like when you've been in a stuffy room and you finally step back outside, the difference in how that feels, how distinct it is. I was picking that up as I watched my first three matches back to back.
Wow.
So back to things I didn't expect. I certainly did not expect to be leaning over to Emma and telling her that I wanted to join a team back home in Lansing. But I did some Googling while we were watching the tournament, and I found out pretty quickly that there wasn't a club in Lansing. And that didn't seem right to me, the state capital not having a club. So I started to talk about it with Emma and with that additional friend who had come with us and that friend's wife. And by the end of the tournament, I had resolved to start a research plan to try to make a club for Lansing.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
You're sitting there with Emma, and Emma knows you. Emma knows who you are.
She does.
And you say, hey, I want to do this. I want to make this happen. What is her reaction to somebody who knows this isn't really your deal?
I think the fact that it was a sport would be a surprise, but I mean, she could also see the nature of the game while we were there and how it's kind of different from other sports I might have tried to pursue. And she also knows that I am the kind of person who sometimes will just take it upon myself to do something if I want it to be done. Here's the dog.
Oh my goodness, look at that dog.
A beautiful
Sorry
dog.
to the listeners, you can't see my little baby girl here.
No, they can. We have a YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
this will be on the channel for all two of the viewers.
But nobody can see me. You're welcome. Most watched episode ever.
But so she does know that I will make things happen if it's something I'm interested in, where, for example, this was before I had met her, but I've told her about this story. I mentioned briefly already in this episode that I was a jazz drummer when I was in school, and I kept that going up through college as well. And once I moved down to Lansing for work, I wanted to keep playing. And so I put a big band together like the whole saxophone section, trombones, trumpet, rhythm section. And there was a lot of work involved in that, a lot of personal investment from me. And it ended up falling through because musicians can sometimes be notorious flakes. And I had no call, no shows to practices. But I had still been the type of person to take the initiative on that and try to get it off the ground. So while there was no guarantee in her mind of this being a success, I don't doubt that she was sure that I would at least try to the best of my efforts to make it happen.
Wow. That's fascinating. I mean, that shows some stick-to-itiveness and dedication. And as being a club manager, I'm sure you were well aware of all of the trials and tribulations that you will encounter throughout the season. How did you go about building your club? Because I mean, as building a big band, which I'm going to come back to that, like, did you just reach out to friends, fellow musicians? Did you put an ad out in the paper? What was your process?
So some of it, there was a little bit of friend recruitment. I will say, after we had seen the tournament, we went to Gaylord for a week for vacation to stay in an A-frame. And this is the way that I approach problems. We were there for our vacation for a week just to get away from everything. And they had good internet. So I spent my vacation just devouring any information about vintage baseball that I could. I sent questions to Moonlight, to Silverback, to Squints from the Saginaw Old Golds, and I workshopped all the logistics, practices, funding, scheduling, equipment sourcing, especially all that kind of stuff. I've been a data analyst for 10 years. That's what I moved to Lansing to do. And I make a spreadsheet for everything in my life that needs organizing. So this was right up my alley. Like I said before, I have very little baseball experience and I play like it, but this is what I can bring to the table as a captain. I can research and organize and pull things together, calculate things all day long. So when it became time to recruit, I put out some feelers with friends, with colleagues, some messages on Facebook. I made a couple posts on Reddit, actually. And we ended up attracting a great group of people who some of them had seen vintage baseball at Greenfield Village, or they had some baseball history and wanted to keep playing in a more relaxed environment. Some people who were interested in the history of it. We have a guy who teaches history and has a history podcast and does historical fencing. This is all one guy. And even the classic what drew people into baseball back in the 1860s was people who thought it sounds like an interesting way to take their exercise, get outside with a group of people. So we all came together that way and started practicing and had a good time and kept at it.
That's amazing.
Tell me about the history you came across as you're going through this entire process that you instilled in your club that still exists that you use.
What sort of history do you mean?
Lansing.
Okay. Well, actually, for the first year, we were the Lansing Senators, because that was the earliest club that I had been able to find in my initial research. And they were a minor league team from 1889. But during that first year, I found out about the Lansing Capitals, who are a pre-professional team that was formed on April 10th, 1865, which is one day after Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Grant in the American Civil War, which I thought was pretty neat. Turns out they were one of the more notable baseball teams in Michigan at the time, though they were definitely secondary to the Detroit Baseball Club and the Central Club of Jackson. So that was a tough decision, but ultimately we changed our name to the Capitals to meet that older history. If the Senators had just been something that we'd made up, I would have been more okay with keeping it. But the fact that it was historical, but incorrectly so, was bothersome. Plus, if any other club ever gets made in Lansing and they took the Capitals name after that, even though we were here first, that would have been a heartbreaker. But yeah, so the Capital Club of Lansing, I believe they participated in the first tournament in the state in Detroit. And, oh yeah, actually it's in our game day pamphlet that I have here. They lost to the Jackson Centrals 45-14 in the first round, but who's counting?
No, back then, nobody. Today,
Yeah.
today people are counting. Tell us about that great event. This event that the Capitals of Lansing, I have to say that because we have two captains of Capitals in the room right now. This is weird. This event I have not made my way down to. It's a newer event, and there's been some controversy, but good controversy that Rudy and I enjoy. So we'll talk about that. But tell us about that event.
So, yes, it is new. This is actually going to be our second year hosting it this year. I'll be honest, the original germ of the tournament idea came just because we have such a nice field. When you're there, you wouldn't even know that you're in the middle of a city. It's flat and open. It's got enough space to run 4 ball games at a time. And there's a wall of trees on every side, parking, a public pavilion that has bathrooms. When we were at practices, I just sort of accidentally started daydreaming about hosting an event. And so then when I started giving it more proper thought, I realized Lansing is also a really central location in the state. So why the heck not? So I went with 1864 rules because, let's be real, Worlds at Greenfield Village is the main event with capital letters. And I have no desire to try to usurp that position. And since Worlds and Bay City State Cup are both fly events, let's add a bound tournament. For the finer details, it has open stealing and sliding and stuff like that, because I wanted to try making this event as much of a reenactment as we could and stick to as much historical precedent as we could. We don't always do so much for, like, we're not sticklers for an exhibition match necessarily, but for the tournament, something we're hosting a bunch of other clubs for, I wanted to take that route with it. I know there's always a debate in the community about where the line gets drawn between accurate recreation and watchable summer activity, but it was important to me that if something was changed from the 1864 game, it at least had a reason, like batting orders with more than 9 people, so you can get everybody to play and it doesn't affect the viewing experience. Yes, I'm okay with that, but I didn't want to make a modification if it was just because we think it makes the game better for us on the field. Improving the game is the duty of rules committees over the years since then, not Cutter from Lansing. Cutter's my nickname, if I haven't said that. Short for woodcutter, because I make our baseball bats. Anyway, if we knowingly change things at our own discretion, or just because it's how modern vintage just happens to be usually played, then it doesn't seem like historical baseball anymore. It's just different baseball in funny uniforms. Obviously, there's a ton of wiggle room with regard to newcomers still getting things sorted, or people who are still learning new things, or people who are well established and have had something new pointed out to them and they haven't changed over yet, or whatever. But I just didn't want to knowingly deviate from what we as a community best know to be true to the past, at least for the sake of the tournament. Although one last note about, oh, yes.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
This is just a minor personal thing. Small note about historical accuracy, because this keeps bugging me. The word is historical, not historic. I keep seeing that. Historic means like big or important. Historical means of the past. So like the COVID pandemic is a historic event. My great-grandparents coming through Ellis Island is historical, but not historic. The Gettysburg Address was both. Any given match we play could be unexpectedly historic in retrospect, but in the moment we are playing a historical game.
This appears to be a nerve that's been hit with you. A
pet
peeve of yours, if you will.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me a lot, but I notice every time.
Liar. There's a vein that's popping out. All right. I'm gonna go back on a couple of these things that you brought up. One, Cutter is your vintage baseball nickname, because you make the baseball bats. Do you want to plug your baseball bats right now, or you just want to move past it?
Sure, I wouldn't mind to. You can just look me up as let's see, it's Jarema, Jarema Batworks on Facebook, or let me make sure this domain still works. I'm pretty sure JaremaBatworks.com will take you to a gallery of some of the bats I've produced. It doesn't seem to be loading, so that's not promising. But if you can email Jarema, it does work. It just needs to be HTTP, not HTTPS. So http://www.jaremabatworks.com. Gallery of bats. Feel like this is taking too long to explain, but
that website just went from historic to historical right in front of our eyes.
But for our first year, sorry.
Go ahead.
For our first year, we gave bats to all of the teams that we played matches against as like a thank you for helping us getting our footing with designs based on their uniforms. So like down by the grip, it was where the shoes would be. And then down at there isn't really a barrel on a vintage bat, but down at the barrel end, it was where the hat was. And the sweet spot where you'd hit would be on where the player's face is, but that was not a subtle message or anything.
Nice. Let's go back to the line that you referred to, the line in vintage baseball. It's a very unreasonable line, and I'll tell you why. When the Ohio Village Muffins, and Rudy's going to jump in on this, I assume, at some point. The Ohio Village Muffins start what they decide to go with in the vintage baseball community. The Ohio Village Muffins had an audience. They had somebody they were playing in front of. There were people coming there for vintage baseball. So modifying it for a much better spectating visual and experience was something that made sense for them. Okay. And now teams say that same thing is we want something that's more pleasurable experience for people watching, but kids, no one's watching except your wife and your kids, and your wife doesn't care. Okay. So, so you're using something that's not true. You don't have fans. Now, there are clubs that do have fans that come out. I'm talking the majority. I'm just talking majority. So don't tell them, oh, this club has fans. Yeah, I get it. Greenfield Village has fans. They have to put on a show. Understandable. When you are playing somewhere on average Saturday at average city, 2 clubs, no tournament, no nothing, you're not playing in front of anybody. Just play by the rules. Just play by the rules. You have no reason not to. Mm-hmm. It's an excuse. Rudy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can understand that. I mean, I feel like there's a change in the community where it is trying to get to a more accurate interpretation of what the rules were, rather than what rules were spread throughout the community. But yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. With the showman putting on a show to entertain the guests as opposed to playing by the rules, because it's been stated about the World Tournament. When the World Tournament was unrestricted and everything, those games were long and high scoring and not very fun to watch. Nobody really enjoys watching matches that are completely lopsided. So you want to keep, I understand that, Barrel Roller.
Michael, is it true you've had teams drop out of your event because of the accuracy of the rules? We don't have to name them.
It's a little complicated regardless, even without naming names, because so there was some controversy about specifically the open stealing, which when I was doing the planning for the tournament at that point in time, I didn't know what the historical situation of stealing was. So I reached out to resources about it. I asked questions and I found out that, okay, stealing was a thing. So let's have stealing and let's try to encourage it to be in the more historical manner where it's more of like hands forward, not feet forward, and closer to the plate, not like sliding a long distance across the ground. So we determined, yes, that's what we'll do. And there were some people that took issue with that because that's not how they normally play, and they wouldn't stand a chance in the tournament, was their perspective. And on the one hand, I understand that perspective because we had never done open stealing before. And I wasn't able to play much during the tournament because I was trying to keep things going, but our club did play. And I think we got eaten alive a little bit by some people who were much better at stealing than us. So I get it. But with regard to if we've had anyone drop out for that reason, the club that took the biggest exception to the open stealing did drop out, but they said that they were having issues fielding a full team that weekend. And I am willing to take their word on that. So I won't say it was because of the open stealing.
How diplomatic of you. That's very nice.
I work for the government, so.
Oh, God.
I'm not a politician, but.
Michael, we're going to get you out of here. But before we go, we certainly appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the Lansing Capitals history and all of that jazz. But you got a new season coming up. You have a brand new schedule. Obviously, you have your event on that schedule. I want you personally, not as club manager, as you personally, what match besides your own tournament are you most looking forward to on your upcoming schedule?
It's got to be coming up to Bay City to play the Independents. We have played them every year, and there actually is some historical precedent for a relationship between Lansing and Bay City. That's another thing we have in our pamphlets, actually. Lansing beat Bay City in the first match that the original Lansing Capitals had against the Washington Club of Bay City, I think it was. Yes, the Washingtons. And then the Washingtons beat Lansing in the rematch 30-29, both in that first year. And I think that's really cool. And obviously I'm from Bay City, so I really like getting a chance to go up there. Some of my old friends and family are able to come out and watch. And I mean, I went to Carroll Park when I was a kid. I know the place. It's just really nice to be able to get to play there, even if I'm sort of turning traitor in doing so.
Remember the water fountain that was a lion in center field? Remember
Yep.
that water fountain?
Yes, I do.
So many diseases.
It always smelled a little funky.
It did. I've used it. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, you can find the Capitals like most others on the Facebooks. Michael, tell us everywhere people can find information about Lansing.
I try to keep it consolidated on our Facebook page. I have some long-term ambitions to start a nonprofit to help consolidate information on clubs in the state and help clubs schedule with each other, teach, and all that stuff. I've been selling some of my old video games and Pokemon cards to help fund that getting off the ground. But for now, it's just on our Facebook page is where I try to keep everything in one easy to find place. So it's actually a Facebook group, not a Facebook page. I don't know if that makes any difference for how you find them, but if you search for the Lansing Capitals
40.
Vintage Baseball Club, there you go.
All right. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Rudy, go ahead and say your goodbyes.
I'm just going to say, Michael, be careful because you have the passion. You have a skill set. You're going to mess around and people are going to be coming to you for a bunch of stuff. So be careful, tread lightly. And I wish you nothing but the best. I hope you have a great season. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for having me on here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Hey,
Absolutely.
Thanks for stopping
Look forward
by.
to seeing you another season.
Talk to you guys later.
We're professionals. We just step all over each other. That's what we do.
Man. Hey, but you know what? That's how connected we are. All right.
Is Zach here?
Yes, Zach is here.
All right. Tell Zach we're going to bring him in and we're going to keep him muted as we go. We have to cover a few things, but at least he'll already be in the room and ready to roll when we introduce him.
Okay.
Because first, we got a little business to take care of.
Yeah,
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
This is your Rock Off the Barrel news break for Thursday, April 27th, 1871. I'm Jonathan McLean. Dateline, Boston. The brand new professional club here in the city held their inaugural game against the Harvard Nine from Cambridge. 2,000 people came out to watch on the new Boston grounds, and they were in for a treat. George Wright turned a nifty double play, and the Boston scored 4 runs in their half of the first, only one of those actually being earned. Samuel Jackson used his lightning bolt at bat to hit for a triple and then scored on a wild throw. A 7-run fifth inning, as well as goose eggs in the 8th and 9th for Harvard, brought the game to a conclusion with a final score showing a win for the Bostons, 13-4. Today's game recap brought to you by Raiders German Snuff. Qatar season is here, And if you want to clear out your nasal cavity, try the best German snuff in town. Don't let your kids suffer with a stuffy nose. Give them Raiders. And by Atwood's Quinine Tonic Bitters. For satisfactory results, go with Atwood's. And by Elo Litern Divorces. If that's not the kind of ride you're looking for, try Elo Litern for prompt divorces. I'm Jonathan McLean, and this has been your Roller Out the Barrel News Break.
Jonathan McLean, he never disappoints. Hey, Rudy, I turned on my camera for a second just so you could see the shirt that came in today.
Whoa! Look at that.
Okay, now I got to turn it back off because of the static. But I will say that your shirt's on your way to you. And I believe it's a navy blue. But anyway, so to anybody who just saw that shirt, if you're interested in getting that Roller Out the Barrel shirt, it's a little different because we know we're not rolling out some big store and all that stuff for merch. We're just not that big of a deal. But listen, if you want that shirt I just showed you, you can Venmo me at Barrel Roller. You can Cash App me at $bar roller, BAR roller. If you Venmo or Cash App me $30, we will send you a shirt. And that's it. So we don't make much off of that. Any money that we make off of that would go towards new equipment. How apropos is that? Also, we have episode 200 coming up sometime over the summer. Rudy, I just wanted to inform you that that's your responsibility and of putting that show together. So you listen, you don't do jack around here, Jackson. I don't do much either, but listen, you don't have to time it right. You can make this episode 200 recording whenever you want it to happen. Okay. And we just won't release it until it's episode 200. Do you see what I'm saying?
Going to be a bicentennial extravaganza.
I'm sure it will. So all of that planning, whatever you come up with, I don't even care what we do. I don't care what we do. I don't care who we interview. I don't care. It's your responsibility. And and also I got a shirt in the mail from the Riverside Smudge Pots today from Chris Johnson. So I just wanted to shout out to Chris Johnson. Thanks for the shirt. Thanks for the stickers. And he sent a magazine. And I don't know if he sent this to you or not, Rudy, but they were the lead story in this magazine, and it was very impressive. And I can't wait to read it. But they're the cover art of this magazine that had nothing to do with vintage baseball. So it was amazing looking. And I just wanted to shout out to the Smudge Pots and Chris Johnson. Thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, I mean, they tend to they have a lot going for them that make me a little jealous. So I'm excited for them.
You always are. Rudy, bring in our guest.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Well, our guest has been so patient while we catch everybody up on what's new with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce to you Zac Holdren. How you doing, Zac? See?
There we go. No, we're good. We're good.
It's on me.
Doing well, guys. Thank you very much. And trust me, it was worth the wait. I cracked a cold one while we were waiting, so we're good.
I see you tipping back, and I was like, I should have grabbed one. What was I thinking? I'm just gonna sit here and suffer.
I love watching everybody drink when we do these recordings because I have to get up in a few hours and go to work. So
I'm sorry.
Thanks, everybody. Zac, former. Now you're going to correct me in any details I get here because I only hear bits and pieces throughout the landscape of vintage baseball. But Zac, former captain of the Wyandotte Stars of Michigan. He's shaking his head. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sorry that you cannot see me on video, Zac, but there's an audio issue when I turn on my video. So we just want to keep this crisp and clean. So just know that I look real good.
Yeah,
And
we told him, we like, listen, it sounds so much better when we can't see you, barrel roller. So
it's true. I got a face for this. And you also, Zach also has a fantastic relationship with his father, Brian. Am I wrong on any of this so far?
So far, I mean, you're nailing it. Peanut and I have been on the Stars now for over 15 years, so it's crazy.
And although I do not have a personal relationship with either one of you, before we talk about you for an hour, let me bring up your dad. I'm sure we'll talk about your dad a lot. Your dad is a guy that commands respect without being, he's not, he not in the way that you think. He doesn't look imposing in any way, shape, or form. He just walks into a room and you're just like, that's a guy. That's a guy that demands me to respect him, and I don't know him. And he gives off this aura.
I believe the word you're looking for is gravitas.
He does have gravitas.
Yeah.
Would you say that's correct, Zach?
Yeah, and having been, essentially in his shadow my entire life, it's crazy to see, people from all over. Well, they go out of their way to come say hi, or you may not have seen him in 5 years, but you come up, shake his hand, and you pick up a conversation just as if you talked 2 days ago. So he's just one of those guys, and it's made relationship making in vintage baseball way easier for guys like me who work on the backside of things. So
yeah, I love your dad, and I don't know him. So
yeah.
I guess that he has always treated me great. We've had some conversations, nothing of length, unfortunately for me. And so I would say that the Holdrens, Brian and Zach, when I was on Bay City, whenever we had Wyandotte on the schedule back in the day, I was like, sweet, I get to see the Holdrens because you guys are a couple of great dudes. And it wasn't about playing the baseball game. As you get, everybody has those clubs where you're like thinking about the people more than you're thinking about the game. And Wyandotte was definitely one of them because your field sucked.
Oh God. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's only gotten worse over the years. We're working on it, but it's like Crater City out there this year, especially with all the weather damage from, the ice storms and things. It is so terrible this year.
And it always seemed to be the hottest day of the summer whenever Bay City would go down to Wyandotte. Always, it was only a couple of times for me, but there were stories of, oh my God, it's always hot when we go down there. And some.
Yeah, and very little shade on that field. A little bit of coverage for like when you're sitting on the bench, but when you're out in center field, and Bay City's putting up their stereotypical 8 to 10 run inning, it is a scorcher. We're always like mid-July. It was fun because after the match we always had a great gathering and breaking bread. I always love coming up to Bay City and going to Cap's house afterwards. But those July dates are always so terrible and wind up.
So Rudy, before we get into the questions about vintage baseball, I do have a story. I have a story that I think I've talked to Zach once or twice about, but there was a match. Bay City went down there for a match, and it was a great day. I believe Wyandotte got out to a big lead, and I believe we came back and won that match. After the match, this is where the story starts. So as soon as the match is over, all of a sudden weather shows up that we weren't bothered by all day. Last out, all of a sudden you see clouds coming. You're like, oh my God, well, we're going to the pavilion to have our food. So we're like, we're going to be covered. It's no big deal. I mean, it's a cloud burst. It's a downpour. And so everyone, you're in a pavilion with no walls and everything, and everybody is stuck in there, but we're having beer, we're having pizza, we're having a good time and everything. And it was kind of crazy. And then here's the main course. We had a player. His name was Mad Scientist. Okay. He was out in his minivan with his family, who he was with all day. They were there. They had a lot of kids, and they had a tent that was for timeouts because their kids kept getting in trouble. So their kids would have to keep taking turns at timeout. So he comes running into the pavilion from the parking lot. It's a downpour. And he grabs a couple of pizzas and he takes up back to his minivan. And he's like, hey, I got my family in the van. And he ran back to his van. And Rudy, we never saw him again. He never showed up to a practice. He never showed up to another game. We don't know if he even left Wyandotte. That was the last sighting of the mad scientist.
Clearly, this individual is dealing with the guilt of having stolen pizza from everyone. And so they're witness protection, it sounds like.
He might not
Zach,
have
do
made
you
it out of
remember
Wyandotte.
that?
I do. That was actually my sister's graduation party day. So right after the game, I tried to help clean up everything really quick, and then that weather hit. So, afterwards, I'm sure there was like easily at least one, maybe 1.5 pizzas left. I decide I'm taking those back to the graduation party, only to find that the graduation party was like decimated by the weather. There was like only the grandparents were left. There were like 10 by 10 pop-ups that were just turned inside out. So we were eating Wyandotte Stars pizza for a couple of days because the whole party was ruined. Luckily, we got our game in. That's all that I worried about that day. But yeah, that was
important thing happened. Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely a memorable date. I do remember that one.
What did you do with our player?
He might be hanging out with one of our players that his very first game decided to sub in at second base, a pop-up behind second base. He took a tumble going after it. Possibly, he said he thought he broke his collarbone. Had never heard from him after that game. So him and Longhorn was his nickname. They might be hanging out together somewhere in one of Wyandotte's oldest bars. We never know.
Some people say you can still hear them to this day on the ballpark.
Breaking their collarbone and stealing pizza. That's what they're known for. That's great things to be known for. Okay, Zach, take us all the way back to the very beginning of finding vintage baseball. We'd go back. We'll try to circle around and go back to the very beginning of baseball in your life. But I have a feeling you have a lot of this meat on the bone because of your father's involvement. So go back to the beginning. How and where do you come across vintage baseball?
Much like some of the guys that we all like watch playing. Field trip to Greenfield Village. They put on a little demonstration as the Lottie does. I remember buying it was like set 1 or set 2 of the baseball cards and a baseball with like artwork going all the way around it of the Lottie does like in their uniforms. And I was probably 12 or 13, and I'm like, this would be really cool to come and watch one day. Fast forward 5 years or so, it was my senior year of high school, and my dad was friends with Greg, Rudy Powell. And Greg got a hold of my dad and said, hey, Wyandotte's looking to put together this, team for, put on like this heritage game of baseball. Have you ever heard of it? My dad hadn't heard of it, but he brought it to my attention. I'm like, oh my God, I've seen this. I know exactly what they're talking about. It would be really cool if he participated. I was only 17 at the time, and they were like, they didn't want to go under 18. They wanted to keep it, adults. So that was fine. But he went to 1 or 2 practices. I went with him, and the rest is kind of history. They decided to make it the first game was just a one-off against the Latidas. And they decided, well, if we get enough guys committed, we can do a full season. We had enough connections where we could put together a pretty good schedule. And then the offer came for me to play full time with the Stars with my dad. So, going from seeing it, at 12 years old to playing it when I'm, 17, 18, that was pretty cool. And I know a lot of guys share that story.
What was there any hesitation on your dad's part getting you out there? I'm not asking you to speak for him, but could you sense it? Because as somebody who has taken a vintage baseball field as a young age with my father and brothers, like He wants to make sure we're safe, but because we're playing with grown men. But did you get any sense of that?
A little bit. It was after high school. I had already determined like I wasn't going to play, beyond high school for baseball. I was, strictly an academic when it came to college. So, when I got out there, we, the guys who came out to our team, there were a few older guys. There's a couple guys who could really, hit and could, can do a few things, but it wasn't like our very first match, I think, is when I seen, my dad's eyes kind of widen a little bit, like, oh, this is a little more serious than what we do at our practices, where we just kind of take BP, have fun. I started off playing at second base, and it was weird seeing everybody else's hesitation to fielding a ball, barehanded, catching a line drive barehanded. Very shortly after, maybe midway through the season, I took over at first base because I was one of the only guys that wanted the ball thrown like directly to him. Everyone else was trying to skip it to first base and, do all this to, make it easier on people. But I mean, you got to play it like you are playing with a glove, or, mistakes can happen. So his hesitation, it was early on, but I think once we got the feel for everything, I was more kind of worried about him because he hadn't played in years. He coached me when I was in Little League, but he never like picked up a bat or anything. So that was, I'm like, I don't know what he's getting himself into at this point.
Dude, let me follow up on this, Barrel Roller, because this hit a nerve for me. Just strictly because my father's first nickname was Fearless. He never met something he wouldn't run into or sacrifice his body for in a game. And what was that like, trying to be like, Dad, are you okay? Dad, how about we not do this? Dad, like, what talk about treading that water with your father, trying to be like, to like not take care of, but look after his safety as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's very similar, like thinking he can, I'm gonna put one in the gap, make it a triple. I'm like, you need to pull back a little bit, and start with just little Texas League singles, and then defense, rotate in and out. There's plenty of guys who play second base. Rotate in and out. You don't got to be there all nine. Take it easy a little bit.
Oh man, I hope Ian Frias or Rudy Frias are listening.
The one beautiful thing about vintage baseball is that you get a chance. It's just about the only sport you get a chance to actually play with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
You grow up playing baseball, and sure, they can be coaches or your biggest cheerleader, but you're actually walking on the field with your dad. Do you remember a moment during a match? I know I'm really trying to go back in your memories, and I'm sorry if you can't think of anything right off the top of your head, but a moment of playing with your dad where you're like, this is the coolest thing in the world.
It was probably that first season. We didn't win a game at all, but somehow Greg got us invited to the World Tournament, and we met a lot of these guys, and we step out on the field for the first time, and it's like, you guys know vintage baseball. There's few and far between when you have crowds and things like that, and it just so happened that the batting order we batted back to back, so I think I hit a single. I was on first, and he came up, to bat right behind me, and to hear it was probably Marcus was still playing at the time. It was probably the Thomas Roosevelt actor, announcing my dad's name. I'm like, this is cool. Like, not when I got announced, because it is what it is. But once I got on base and then they announced my dad, I was like, all right, this is a cool moment.
Yeah, you've been announced a lot. You played enough baseball and everything. You've never heard your dad announced or anything like
right.
that. Yeah. As we say 1,000 times on this podcast, vintage baseball feels different at Greenfield Village. So let me plug them for a second. If you want to enjoy the best of vintage baseball, you can go any weekend during the summer to Greenfield Village and watch vintage baseball with a crowd and just get the different aura. And it's the setting, although right field on one of the fields isn't the greatest, and there's a stone path that goes through. It's okay, it's not perfect. I don't like it that much, but the aura can't be beat. The aura cannot be beat. So that's why they play on a field like that. It's because it doesn't matter where so shout out to the Greenfield Village Lottie-Das for keeping vintage baseball so fun in Michigan. Zach, tell us about when you were deciding you loved it so much you wanted to run the club, and then tell us what went into the decision that it was time to step away from running the club and just being a player again.
Running the club, it was kind of a situation internally where we needed some new blood. We needed because Wyandotte very unique. Wyandotte is ran through the city and in the city museum, whereas a lot of vintage baseball teams are all independent. So a lot of things, like, we have to get approved. We have to jump through a lot of hoops because of the ties to the city. So there were some changes that needed to happen. And there was a handful of us that stepped up. Me, I think I was in my third or fourth year of college. Not quite in my career at the time. So I had a little bit of extra time. Then we had a couple other guys step up. One retired cop, so he had a lot of time on his hands. He took a role that was like a go-between between the city and the club that we had created set to make things a little easier on the guys running the club and the guys that are like doing the day-to-day playing. And we just kind of gelled. There was 4 of us at the time. Writing the schedule was pretty much my big responsibility, writing the schedule. And then we would organize home games. We got to provide meals. We need equipment, things like that. And then we'd all make that happen. But the big thing for me was writing a schedule that would kind of push us a little bit to our limits. We try to limit travel to maybe once a month, big road trips. And with teams popping up all over, that kind of helped a little bit, where we were able to, play a lot more local games. And it helps that, Dearborn's pretty close to Wyandotte. So we'd get our game or two in there as well. But, as time goes, I'm now in my 8th year of teaching high school, and it was kind of just time. The writing was on the wall. And we had some new blood that wanted to invest their time. So what I did is I took the role of the city go-between, that we call it a coordinator. So I handled like the backside of things with the city instead of being a captain on the field and writing the schedule and things like that. I passed that off to Jerry Haynes. Last year was his first year. It went as expected. I think it was very much a first year of being a captain. This year, I think it's going to be way better. Our schedule's great. I think it's the right amount of games and then the right opponents as well, where we're going to get pushed, throughout the year, but also we're going to have a lot of fun. And we're doing a couple new things. We're traveling out to Lansing, visit those guys for the first time. We played them in Frankenmuth last year, and they were awesome. So thank you for making that connection for us right there on the field. But yeah, it was just time for me, and last year was a lot less stressful as a captain.
There it is. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stress. You gotta, how many guys am I gonna have coming to this game? Do I have enough? Who's bringing what to the meals? And things like that. It's just the little headaches that.
Dude,
you're making Rudy twitch. I see a twitch start.
When I took over the Capitals, I had a full head of luscious, thick hair. And then, you got to make some sacrifices for the good of the club. So, that's it. It is who was it that said it? Someone said it that vintage baseball for people who are playing is a nice hobby. For people running the team, it's a part-time job. Right?
That's 100% true. And one of these days I might make the jump to just being a player again. But once you're invested, like your time and everything you're invested, like I couldn't fully walk away from that. I want to make sure that, everything's going to still run somewhat, smoothly as I expected it, because I was captain for 10 years. So
let me ask you this, captain for 10 years. What was it like captaining Dad?
We had a mediator that would keep us both in line, because I got told many a time that I was being too hard on him, and then vice versa, us chirping at each other across the field, and it's so stressful sometimes when a guy's 45 feet away from second base, but he wants to underhand a double play ball. I'm like, you throw the dang ball, like.
Zach, how are we just now meeting and having this conversation? How is this possible? Oh my gosh. We have
you
so
guys
much
have something
experience.
to bond over right here. This is incredible.
My therapist wife would call this trauma bonding.
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, so there's a co-captain that would be Joe Dirt. He would come up to me and be like, "Hey, tone it down a little bit. You're yelling in front of these, 100 people on the hill at the village."
Oh
God, yeah, I'm sorry.
I love it. I feel like they're 100%. Even there might have been a game where we were on the field doing the same thing with our fathers against each other, but definitely that same weekend in Greenfield Village, having the same emotions. This is very cathartic for me. Thank you very much.
I remember vividly, actually. It might have been our last tournament. I think we opened up against the Capitals, and it was a very, very close game.
Yes.
And even in the close games, that gets amped up just a little bit more,
Yeah. Oh gosh, those are the games where I rely on Rudy to bring me back down to just not so much of it's not like ego check. It's just like, hey, I don't know, it's something about Rudy that makes me happy. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Greg. Sorry.
Yeah, he comes over with them shoulder rubs, and he's like, just relax. He's been known to get between my dad and I once or twice.
Exactly.
Just to calm things down.
Zach, you brought up Frankenmuth, so I want to take this opportunity, and this is something I should say more often when I run across captains or former captains from clubs that have attended Frankenmuth. I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for having enough faith in an event that didn't exist, with a guy who really didn't exist in vintage baseball that much. I was just like a role player on Bay City, and you had enough faith to come to Frankenmuth. You definitely added to the event and made it as big as it was, and then successful as it was. And then I actually dealt with Jerry for a season on that, and it was great to see him at the captain's match and everything. And I just want to say thank you. I don't think I say that enough to the attending clubs when I run across them. And so I'm starting with you, Zach. Thank you, Zach.
I'm glad I'm the first, but no, we can't thank you enough for putting it on, and all of the volunteers too, because I know you had a ton of people that were at the drop of a hat they're going to help you out. The first year we were disappointed we couldn't fit it into the schedule, but then the second year it was you got to me early, and I'm like, absolutely, like this, I'm not letting it pass us by twice. And I'm glad we didn't, because some great memories, some great bonds were made up there. We're still trying to figure out how there's a couple restaurants that don't have liquor license. We just happened to find both of them one weekend.
Did you go to the Mexican restaurant or the barbecue joint? Yes.
It was the Mexican restaurant. We're like, there's no beer, no margaritas. What?
Oh my gosh!
Wait, I don't even know about this. How is there a restaurant in Frankenmuth that doesn't have a license? How are you surviving?
My father was so offended.
It's a real thing. Like, I had no idea. We walked in and like the wait was as if like they were just pushing a ton of food. They're like, hey, 20, 25 minutes. We get in and hey, Corona. And they're like, no. Margarita? No. They're like, what's going on? Where am I at right now?
Well, I apologize for that.
No, it has nothing to do with you. But it's a story, right? Like that's what all this. Just you walk away with a good story. It was great food, but we immediately went next door to the bar and closed that down. So
Was that Main Street Tavern? I'm trying to think of what bar is next to the Mexican restaurant.
it was actually around the corner. It wasn't right next door. It was like right around the corner, not too far from the barbecue restaurant.
Wow.
So
That's
no,
you got your beer.
It was a great story. That's all.
Love it.
Let me ask this before we move on. Was the Mexican restaurant the first of the 2 restaurants you went to that didn't have a license?
When
did you go to the second one?
No, that might have been the only one. I might be exaggerating a little bit.
Okay.
Because other people were like, well, you better not pick another one that doesn't have a license. So it was like deep in my head, like, all right, if I'm picking the restaurant, I have to do my research now.
That's
yeah.
all the pressure of being a captain boiled
Right.
down to like encapsulated in that moment of I got to get these guys some booze.
Yeah, and funny enough, like the early risers were eating there. I'm like, what are the early risers doing here? They are like above and beyond anything that we are as a drinking club. And they're just eating their tacos like everybody else. I'm like, oh well, I'm sure we'll run into you guys down the road somewhere.
I'm sure they were just as disappointed. Also, I need to thank you for attending an event I put together at Hamtramck Stadium back before they fixed it all up and everything, back when it was kind of a dump.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the best way to put it. We had the Mount Clemens Club and
Yeah.
you and who else was there?
There was a third club, right?
Bavarians. Well, the Bavarians were there. I think it was
Okay.
4 clubs.
It might have been 4. Yeah, that was back when they had the cement walkway going through like center field, and
we had Cindy Cobb there throwing out the first pitch. Ty Cobb's great granddaughter or granddaughter or something like that.
Yeah, those
She
pictures
reenacted. Yeah, because Ty Cobb threw out a first pitch at that stadium, so she reenacted that first pitch. So, and the mayor of Hamtramck was down there too in full dress. You remember that? Full dress.
I do remember that.
That was a great day. And then I got drunk afterwards with the regulars for a little bit. Just a little bit.
Did they bring the peach?
You know they did. You know they did.
I might have been there for one. A little fuzzy.
I fit in as much as I could in a small amount of time because everybody started leaving. I'm like, I just got all this stress off my shoulders. I'm ready to party, and everyone left. Anyway,
I have a story. I have a story real quick about the regulars. We went up there one year, and it was a long match. It was probably 3 hours. And we finally sit down to eat, and they break out the sangria. And within 10 minutes, like the park ranger comes by and says, all right, you guys got to go. Like, we're closing the park down. The disappointment that you could have seen in everybody's eyes when like the sangria goes away and because we literally had 10 minutes to like devour our food and get out because they were getting ready to get, write citations or whatever to anyone who was still lingering in the park.
Dang. And for the listeners out there, the regular sangria is kind of a rite of passage, I would say. I remember my first sangria moment, and then I was very upset that it had just come into my life after knowing this club for an extended period of time. So
the real rite of passage is if you get to drink it from a best hurler's mug as it gets passed around. That's the rite of passage.
Oh, man.
Anybody else gets the Dixie cups. If you drink from the mug, you're somebody.
I just realized I've only ever gotten the Dixie cup.
Well,
What the? What the
I
hell's
took
going
my
on?
drink from Paul Hunkley.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
yeah.
He had like a period appropriate.
Yeah, it was very appropriate. It was accurate.
Yes.
Did he tell you everything you were doing wrong before he handed you the cup? It's kind of like a here's this and then here's this to make up for it kind of. Or it's
Yep.
even.
Yep.
Zach, you're a teacher. I see that if I look at my information that you've so kindly provided on social media for everybody to devour. You studied secondary education and you majored in social studies at Eastern Michigan University. Social studies is something I took in grade school as a kid. I don't think it was something that ever went on. What is social studies in a college atmosphere? What are you actually dealing with subject matter wise?
So really, it's kind of like painting with a broad brush. It covers U.S. history, world history, economics, government. You can go into psychology, sociology. It pretty much, I had to take a little bit of everything. And then my minor was in history, so I had to take way more U.S. history to earn my minor. But it essentially I had to take a little bit of everything, so that way when I go to teach, I have some sort of background knowledge in all of the social studies. I prefer to dabble in U.S. history and government, but I'm able to do pretty much anything that I need to for teaching high school.
Are you full-time teaching right now?
Yeah, so I'm in my 8th year. I'm teaching in the district that I graduated from, and when I went back, I initially got a job at their virtual academy, um, thinking that I would use that as kind of like a stepping stool into the high school. And after 8 years, I kind of found kind of similar with vintage baseball. I had so much invested in this program, growing it from like 30 kids to now we have almost 400 students virtual. Um, and yeah, kind of COVID has a little bit to do with that. But uh, pre-COVID, we had 305 students. So to help it grow and help it turn it into what it is now, I'm pretty much invested in this program. Where like I don't know if I would take a face-to-face, you know, classic teaching job anymore. I'm kind of in this new realm of virtual teaching where there's a curriculum and you get to assist one-on-one with these students, kind of give them almost like tutoring, but it's make it more geared towards them. And a lot of our students, they're like last chance kind of kids. For one reason or another, they're not able to attend 5 days a week in school. So that's kind of really the rewarding thing is, seeing a 19 or 20-year-old who may have been written off, a year ago or 2 years ago, able to finally walk the stage and get their diploma. So that's kind of my realm of teaching right now.
Heck
Are
yeah.
you teaching mainly history?
Yeah, mainly history, in government. I dabble in world history. It's not my favorite. And then economics is always kind of fun to get into, kind of compare it to like what's happening real world right now. Uh, but a lot of like the basics to teach is it's a little rough to teach the basics of econ without going too in depth.
Zach, what are the details about what goes into the cost of gasoline for the consumer? How does the government decide all of that and the businesses and everything? Who's involved in that?
I wish I could explain all of that to you in the time that you've given me, but uh, any of your recent trips to the gas station, you've seen stickers on the pumps that say that somebody did that. I just choose to not believe those stickers, but they're there. Somebody believes it. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a broad statement here then. And you can answer me the best to your knowledge. Do presidents influence the price of gasoline?
Not one bit. Not
Not one bit.
not even remotely close. But I, I'm sorry. I don't want to, step
No,
on
I just
anybody's
wanted the
toes.
truth. I just wanted the truth,
You
and
guys are
that's
popping
always what
so many
I've
balloons right now. Stop it.
that's what I was always taught, is that they don't. But could you say that certain policies that presidents put into play have a trickle down effect to the gas prices, or is it so far away from anything that they do that it doesn't matter?
Well, certain policies have to be voted upon and agreed upon by a majority of somebody. So I wouldn't
Sure.
put the blame on just one particular person making a policy.
No, that's what we do. That's what we do, Zach. We blame
I,
every. How many times has your dad blamed you for something that the rest of the team did?
easily. Oh
You
man,
don't have enough time, barrel roller.
no.
Stop it.
I'd rather answer the first question about the gas prices. My goodness.
Uh, hey, Zach, you're a big baseball fan. I know this about you. You're wearing a sweet retro Toledo Mud Hens hat right now. I believe I have. I always go for the retro logos. I believe I have a red Toledo Mud Hens hat. Same way, except I curve my bill much more because I'm much older than you. Uh, you can tell somebody's age by the curve of their hat, and this is a true story. Except Rudy. Rudy's much older than what his bill on his hat says, and
Yeah.
you need to come to our side, Rudy. You need to round that sucker off. Anyway, you played in high school, so I assume you played in all organization all the way up through high school. I want to hear about your high school career. How did that go? Tell us
Oof.
everything.
It was not the typical high school career. Freshman year, so I was in a big school, so we had three teams all the way up. We had a freshman, a JV, and a varsity. Freshman year made JV, or freshman year made freshman. We went undefeated. Um, we had two stud pitchers that just they probably should have been, maybe number three on the varsity, but they, for some reason, they didn't get too many looks until sophomore year. Sophomore year made JV. Um, got got quite a bit of time playing first base. The only thing I didn't quite hit like a typical first baseman. I was singles, real good eye. I could take a walk, pretty easily. Um, didn't get the call up for playoffs for varsity. So junior year came around, um, and there was a new JV coach, and he kept me on JV for the year to kind of fine tune me for my senior year. Uh, I didn't agree with it. I thought that I should probably have 2 years on varsity, but there was another guy my age who could absolutely just hit the crap out of the ball, and he was probably easily 8 or 9 inches taller than me. So, much bigger target at first base. So I had to kind of figure things out for my senior year. Senior year, a whole new coaching staff comes in. Um, this guy, luckily I met my varsity coach when I did, because he actually got me my student teaching job later on. And it was kind of a fluke. He just kind of seen my name and was like, "Oh, I want him to come down." But he kept me on, and we talked about changing positions and stuff. So I played third base, and I made it probably 5 games. Back when I was in school, there was two teams in the city. There was Taylor Kennedy, which I went to, and then Taylor Truman. And our first game against Truman, crosstown rivals. I think easily 5 out of the first 6 batters literally hit the ball through me at third base. Like, not at me and I like fumbled the ball. It went through me. And the actual coach came out and yanked me mid inning.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. And I didn't start another game after that. I subbed in, got a few at bats. But yeah, senior varsity year was not great. I threw a lot of BP that year. So Yeah, that's kind of affected my decision to not want to go any further. But I was always told I had a baseball mind. So when I did my student teaching, my old varsity coach was the principal, and he paired me with the JV baseball coach at the school that I was supposed to work at. They gave me an opportunity to coach JV with him. I coached with him for 5 years, and it's something I'll never forget. I love coaching. I love you know working fundamentals, working just with other kids who want to like absorb that knowledge, who want to do more than just like hit a home run or things like that.
This is blowing my mind. Barrel roller, I coached high school baseball for 4 years. Like 10, 15 some years ago. But like, let me ask you this question, Zach. When you were coaching, I found this for me. I don't know if it was for you. I felt like hitting infield outfield warm-ups before games, like doing the fungo, tossing the ball, hitting pop flies to the outfield, ground balls to the infield. I felt like my swing has never been better than when I was coaching high school baseball, because I was more focused on my swing, and it translated into a better swing and better production during the season, the vintage baseball season. Did you have a similar experience?
100%, 100%. We would do drills for like the JV guys. You hit the gap, you do a double cut in to third or whatever. And I swear, I don't think I've hit that many doubles before in a vintage baseball season, because I'm just shooting gaps. It was just like muscle memory for me. The only thing I could not do, and it still eats me up to this day, and if I go back to coaching, I need to be able to teach myself to do this, is to hit a pop up to the
To the catcher. Yes.
Pop up to the catcher. My varsity infield coach would put a trash can on home plate, and he would just drop 10 of them into the trash can, no problem. I can't do it. I can't figure it out.
Me either. I would hit a perfect infield outfield before the game warm up. Our guys are looking sharp. The other team's watching from the dugout, and then it would get to the catcher, and I'd be like, "Man, I'm real sorry," and I'd just throw it up in the air. I'd be like,
Yep.
"You on your own."
Yep. Throw it up, make it look good,
Yeah.
and just walk off. Right? Like, don't wait for any other reaction. Just walk off.
So once again, we're talking to Zac Holdren, ballist for the Wyandotte Stars here in Michigan, and you are listening to a relationship form between Rudy Frias and Zac Holdren that will go on for years and years and years. Don't get too comfortable, though, Zach. Okay, he's mine. Zach, what did the earliest baseball look like in your life when you were having a hard time understanding that your shorts had to stay up? Like how, like you're a little boy running around trying to learn this bat and ball game. What are those memories?
I got a couple, man. I had the Little Tykes blue tee with the big bat that was flat on one side and round on the other. And I was doing tee work, 2-3 years old, and then I had a little cousin who's a year younger than me. He came and moved in with us for a year or two when I was probably 5, and I'll never forget. I working on hitting deep fly balls, watching guys like Ken Griffey Jr. and that on TV. It's like, all right, I want to hit the ball far now off the tee, and rope one, and in the backswing, hit him right in the side of the head with the bat, and hearing that thud off of his little head, and don't tell mom, don't tell mom. He sucked it up, took it like a champ. He ended up playing t-ball with me. I was 5. Somehow they got him on when he was 4. And his first hit off the tee, he ran to third base. So baseball was not for him. He ended up playing soccer in high school. But early on, it was that Little Tykes tee, doing the tee work. My I guess you could say grandpa, we'd sit down and watch old videos of the 1975 Cincinnati Reds. So that's my all-time favorite team is the Big Red Machine. They had, they did everything. They did everything right. Pete Rose hitting, hustling everywhere. Johnny Bench kind of directing traffic out there as a captain. Um, just a stud baseball team. And then, been a fan forever. So, Griffey was my all-time favorite player growing up. Uh, Mariners, Ichiro comes over in 2001. I think I went to every Mariners game when they came to Detroit that year, just because it was just such a phenomenon in the way he played the game. I was always the kid that was never afraid to lay down a bunt if it meant to, benefit the team. And then you see Ichiro get up there and drag bunt, and you know, it was just amazing. So what's not to love about baseball? And I don't know, like I get emotional just thinking about some of like the little things that people do that make it what it is.
Well said. Well said. Give us your favorite memory of a Major League Baseball game that you attended.
'06 ALCS. My dad and I were in right field when Maglio hit the walk-off home run, and I I do remember jumping into his arms and bawling my eyes out as this 16-year-old kid. It was emotional because we had season tickets all the way back when they were at Tiger Stadium, and they were just god awful to them. It was kind of like an improbable season, I think. Like I don't think anyone had them going that far. Maybe make the playoffs, but it was a special moment.
Excellent. Zach, I would like to point out that you may not have succeeded at third base in high school, but you got me out every time I hit it to you. And that doesn't mean anything to anybody except me, and it's not good.
Maybe it's the glove. I don't know.
We're gonna get you out of here with a little giving you the old pepper, something we do at the end of most of our episodes. It's going to be quick questions with quick answers just to get you to know you a little bit better. Here
Okay.
we go. Zach, what was the first car you ever had?
94 Ford Mustang.
How many toucan birds would it take to kill a flamingo?
7.
On a scale of 1 to 10, and 1 being the worst, how much would you say teachers are appreciated?
2.
Accurate. Your feelings on Miguel Cabrera still playing this season?
Um, should have left 3 years ago.
Nice. What was the first job you ever had?
Bussing tables at a banquet hall.
Did you have Hot Wheels cars when you were a kid?
A couple. Dodge Vipers were my favorite.
Nice. What is the best thing to do for a visitor to Wyandotte, Michigan?
Show them around to many of the bars in Wyandotte.
Sounds great. And on that note, are the Early Risers the biggest drinking club you've ever come across in vintage baseball?
Yes, but the Mansfield Independents give them a good run for their money.
Nice. What was your favorite cartoon as a child?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
What was the first concert you ever went to?
Creed. Yeah.
Nice. Favorite place to play besides Greenfield Village? You can't answer Greenfield.
Northville.
Nice. I hate right field. Build me your perfect hot dog.
Ooh, mustard, onion, sport peppers.
Nice. And lastly, give us your Mount Rushmore of your favorite Detroit Tiger players ever.
Wow. Let's go with the double play combo of Damian Easley and Davy Cruz.
Are you serious right now?
You didn't say they had to be good. You just said
No,
my
no, no.
Mount Rushmore.
And it is your Mount Rushmore. I just want to know if you're being serious. I love Damian Easley. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. Easley and Cruz up the middle is 1-2. Let's go DH, Juan Gonzalez. And we need a pitcher in
Wow.
there. We need a
Wow.
pitcher in there, so let's go with Nate Cornejo.
This is an obscure list. There ain't no way Nate Cornejo is your favorite Tiger pitcher of all time.
You never
There
said
is-
he had to be my favorite. He's just on the Rushmore. He was such a highly touted prospect that I was invested.
We
Oh.
have a lot of those in Detroit. Highly
Yes.
touted prospects that come out, and they usually come out and are on fire and then go off into obscurity. Most recently, Akil Baddoo, also Chris Shelton in the past, amongst
Oh
others.
God, Chris Shelton, 4 home runs. What happened?
What happened to you, man? All right, Zach, we really appreciate you coming in here and doing this thing. You're always so willing to do things I ask you to do. I appreciate it. Why do
Hey,
you,
yeah,
why are
anytime.
you so good to me, Zach?
Somebody needs to be, right?
That's true. Somebody does need to be. Rudy, go ahead and say goodbye to Zach and then stick around. We have business to finish up.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Zach, to get a chance to chat with you. It's the connective tissue of vintage baseball runs deep, and also Creed. I've seen them in concert twice. So
You guys need to
I mean,
exchange phone numbers, is what's going on here. You
I was
guys
about
need
to-
each other's emails or something. Jesus.
It's funny that it just makes sense. Barrel roller, you like him, I'm gonna like him. It just happens.
Yeah,
we can't
Yeah,
fight
he's a
it.
good dude.
But hey, best of luck to you this season, and yeah, hopefully our paths will cross soon. Okay, take it easy.
Absolutely, boys. Thank you very much.
Well, have a good night, Zach.
You too.
Good episode, dude. We
Yeah,
had
that
a
was
couple
fun.
quality Michigan dudes on this episode.
Oh, you guys got some
Um,
quality people up there. Who knew?
Hey, I know. Listen, I know my character is to rag on Michigan vintage baseball, but I do it tongue in cheek. Okay, we got some. There's no way I fall in love with vintage baseball as much as I have if there wasn't good dudes that made that happen.
That's the reason why I like to travel up there every year, not just for the World Tournament, but every chance I get.
Okay, so do we have anything to take care of before we release the newest hottest single? Oof.
I think it's just we got to give the people what they want. You know what I'm saying?
Do we? Let's face the facts about me and you. A love unspecified. Though I'm proud to call you Mocha Bear, the crowd will always talk and stare.
I feel exactly those feelings too, and that's why I keep them inside. 'Cause this bear can't bear the world's disdain, and sometimes it's easier to hide than explain. Oh God, that's all it is. God, he's mine, I'm his. There's nothing gay about it in our eyes. You asked me about this thing we share,
And he tenderly replied,
it's guy love
between two guys. What the hell just happened?
myself.
We do some crazy stuff around here. The best part about having a podcast, of course, we love talking to the vintage baseball community, and we love talking vintage baseball, but it also gives us an outlet to do some other things that we normally wouldn't be able to do. And because we pay for this, you have to listen to it. So sorry. But I will listen to that for the rest of my life, my friend. Thank you for putting that together as we sang separately. So it was almost like professionally done.
Production.
It was great.
Oh, that makes my heart swell 10 times bigger than it is. I love it so much.
Michelle, listen to this.
She has not. I have not subjected her to that yet, but I'm going to.
I did subject my family to it, and the looks. It was a mix. I'll tell you that. It was, but we love Scrubs, so
Hey,
we try to incorporate Scrubs any chance we get. Hey, Rudy, great episode. It was great to talk to you after we took last week off, and you know what? Weeks off happen. It's just the way it is. When stuff happens with you, stuff happens with me, and stuff happens with guests, and that's just the way it is.
As
But,
long as we continue to come out swinging the very next week, there's nothing wrong with that.
So don't forget, start working on that 200th episode as we get closer. Probably gonna hit it around June.
Got it.
Because I know Flat Rock Invitational is going to add quite a few episodes to this. So anyway, Rudy, say goodbye to everybody.
Friends, for the Barrel Roller, I'm the Swamp Fox. And we're telling you to keep it to station, and we'll see you out in the field.
Station.